In this video, we're going to learn how to write an equation of a line parallel to another line when we're given a point that new line will go through. So the first thing we need to do is we need to focus on that original line we're given, and we need to make sure that that line is solved for y. That way we can easily identify the slope because it'll be in that y equals mx plus b form. And there comes into step 2, identify the slope of that line, that original line. Once we know the slope, we can then substitute the slope in, which is m, and the point x comma y. And we're going to actually change this equation into the point slope formula instead of the slope intercept form because we're given a point x1, y1 and the slope m. So that formula looks like this: y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So we're going to use that formula instead of the slope intercept formula here. So this way, when we solve this equation for y, we're then done and we no longer have to do this last step 5. So that's a little confusing, so let's look at what I mean in this next example here. So it says write a line parallel to the line y is equal to 3x minus 5 and passes through the point -5, -2. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that the original equation we're given is written in the form y equals mx plus b. So this one is written in that form, so our step 2 says to identify the slope of that line. So since we only need the slope, we can kind of completely ignore that -5. All we have to worry about is what is the slope, and in this case, it is 3. So now that we know the slope, and we know the point that our line has to go through, -5, -2, to write the equation of this parallel line, we know that the slope of a parallel line has the same slope as the original line. So we use that slope of 3 and that point of -5, -2 and put it into that point slope formula. So we're going to write y minus, now this is our x1, y1. So substitute in that -2 there for y1 is equal to our slope 3 times x minus our x1 value of -5. Now from here we just need to simplify this. So we have a negative and a negative with the y, so that negative and negative become a positive, and we're left with y plus 2. And then on this side we're going to have to distribute that negative again and get a plus 5, and then we have to distribute that 3, so we're left with 3x plus 15. Now again, we want our equation to be in slope-intercept form, so our y value needs to be by itself. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, and I'm going to get y is equal to 3x plus 13. Now that is going to be our new line that is parallel to the original line we were given, and it goes through the point -5, -2. And that's it. All right, let's take a look at another example. So in this example, we notice that the formula is not in that form y equals mx plus b. So what we have to do is we have to take that formula and solve it for y to figure out what that slope of the line would be. So to do that, to get y by itself, I need to get rid of this 2x here. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides of the equation. Now on this side it cancels out, and I'm left with the y. And on this side I can't combine that 3 and the -2x, so I just write out -2x plus 3, because that 3 is positive. Now this is in the form y equals mx plus b, a slope-intercept form, and so now I can identify the slope to be -2. And again, remember, we can kind of just ignore that y-intercept. My slope is -2. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to look at the point that it passes through, that -2, 5. And remember, that point is your x1, y1. Now we're just going to substitute these values into our point slope formula. So we go y minus our y value of 5 is equal to the slope times x minus our x1 value of negative 2. And we just simplify from there. So we get y minus 5 is equal to, scroll this up a little, negative 2x, and that becomes a plus signs there, minus 4. And then again, we do have to solve for y, so we're going to add 5 to both sides. And let's bring it up here. We get a final equation of y is equal to negative 2x plus 1. That equation is parallel to this original equation we are given, and it passes through this point here. So that means it'll never cross that original line. All right. One last example to take a look at. And this one, the information given is just a little bit different. So we're given that the line passes through 2 points, 2, -7, and 1, -3. We want to write an equation of that line, or of a line that's parallel to that, but passes through the point 2, -1. So remember, all we really want from the original line is its slope. So for the original line, we just need to figure out what is m. Remember, the slope is the rise over the run, or the change in y over the change in x. So what we have to do is figure out what is that change in y over change in x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at these 2 points, 2, -7, and 1, -3. I'm going to look at those and say, okay, well, what's the change in those points? So to get my slope, to get the change, I have to subtract those points. I'm going to do -7 minus -3. Notice again, I'm doing the y values first over the x values because it's rise over run, change in y over change in x. And then I'm going to do 2 minus 1. And now we just have to simplify this. So those become plus signs. So -7 plus 3, that's -4. We have 2 minus 1, so that's just 1. So our slope is -4. So now we know the slope of the original line, and because we're creating a parallel line, we know our new slope needs to be exactly the same as the original. And we know this line is going to pass through the point 2, -1, because that's what they tell us we want it to pass through. So now we just use that point slope formula where we write our x1 and y1 in with our m value. So we do y minus y1, which is -1, is equal to our slope -4 times x minus x1, which is 2. From here, we just need to simplify, so we get y, those become plus signs, is equal to -4x plus 8. And then finally we have to solve for y, so we'll subtract 1 from each side. And then we'll get y is equal to -4x plus 7. So now this equation that we've just come up with is parallel to an equation that passes through those 2 points, goes through the point 2, -1. All right. So that's a nice look at writing equations of lines parallel to a given line and passes through a specific point.